Very much. Next one is the draft Healthy Food Action Plan. That was also your committee. Thank you, Phil.
So look, this has also been an incredible success, really, the whole healthy food movement in Christchurch. And I think in Christchurch we're very much right in front in championing this, and particularly in working with the other organisations, the other community groups who have certainly, they've led the way really, and we've supported them. So, like, there's been some great initiatives which are outlined in that report. The fruit and veggie co-ops, the support for them, some which have been long-standing. Also, though, the healthy foods in schools. Lots of schools actually have those programs. And the whole edible planting, including on council land. Also, though, the one about focusing, instead of focusing on having clean, good, pure drinking water, instead of the sugar drinks, there's initiatives, to support those basic things, and certainly expanding the edible garden awards that some community boards have developed.
That's the Papanui Innes, I think.
They might have kicked it off, and other boards have picked that up, Pauline. The other aspect, and it's not in the plan, but I have referred to the staff, is that at some stage I think the action plan might be able to develop a sort of a strategic alignment with, in fact, focusing on some of the target groups who are most at risk, for example, of obesity diseases and those sort of things. However, there is scope for some community groups, but that could be a potential for say those ethnic groups to be included. But I think there's potential development there. But I'm happy to have other discussion. Yes.
Yeah, look, I really support this. It's fantastic, and I think that particularly the community gardens are, I think, a real basis for this. You cannot force change on people, so the community gardens actually become a magnet for activating communities and switching their concept of food and actually being part of that food that they eventually eat. They're actually part of producing that, and it's an education program, it's a social cohesion, it's all sorts. So I think that the community gardens are actually the real core of changing our attitudes to food and becoming a far healthier city, and not just nutritionally but socially as well. So it's really good to see, and I think I'm really proud of this council for the work that we're doing at, if I may say, the grassroots level, because it's where it all starts, and it's about people, and this is the only way forward. So fantastic.
Mike, and then Yanni Dion.
Thanks. I just want to touch on Action 14, which was the Edible Garden Awards, which obviously the Papanui Innes Community Board's been a leader in. I think it's actually a really, really important award for the communities, and what it's doing is actually, although we're acknowledging residents that are actually doing edible gardens, but it's the schools we're getting to and the preschools, and we're getting them to start off young, and it's a skill they'll learn and they'll have for life, and it's really encouraging to see that obviously the target is to have all wards doing this awards, which I hope to see before that actual deadline.
Yanni?
I think some of us may have had some people read this and then send us an email, but one thing that raised with me is that we haven't actually engaged on this or consulted, and I just wondered if people, obviously people have strong views and opinions, and I just wondered whether there was any way in which we were going to consult or engage, and whether we had any plans to go through each action and have a separate consultation, or whether we just approve it. There's a few things in here that I think people would probably want to provide some feedback on, and I'm not quite sure how they do that.
My view of it, this is an action plan, and all of the actions that involve the community are open to negotiation and consultation and engagement, because they won't happen otherwise.
Right,
one of the items on the agenda is community fridges. Well, New Brighton just started a Give a Little page. Hang on, I just brought it up. The Give a Little page, New Brighton Community Fridge and Pantry, was set up yesterday and closes on the 31st of July, so feel free to go online and contribute. It's a non-profit organisation that provides a place for people to donate food and other products for those in need. The fridge and pantry is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, available, blah, blah, blah. This amazing project needs funding. We are all in need of finances for the shed that the fridge and pantry will be in. So, I mean, the point is that so these things aren't going to happen because the council has put them in an action plan. They're going to happen when the council engages with those communities that have these initiatives and supports them.
Right.
So
The board's given money on
yeah,
that.
That's fine for ones that the communities are doing, but for ones that council are doing, like to give you an example, the tea house, for example, the future use of the tea house, we haven't had any. I think there's a current use in there at the moment. I don't quite know where it's got to, and so is that going to have another report come to us with community views, or is this just going to be the decision today around how that gets used?
which one's that?
Number 13.
That's fair.
So, there are a few things in here.
It says investigate the opportunity to utilise the old tea house.
That other one runs out.
Yeah.
So we put a temporary use in there, so it will come back to council.
Yeah, if you look at the measure of success, it's educational facilities are set up in the tea house.
Yeah, that would be a great outcome.
Well, that's fine. All I'm saying is that the community might have a view.
But they will
what we
have
do.
to be consulted.
Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So they will be consulted on
Yes.
what's proposed there.
Yeah.
And the other one, we can probably cross green prescriptions off. We've already done that. I think just yesterday, day before. Tuesday. So number 16.
No, the point is this is an action plan, and we're doing a trial. That is what we signed off as part of the annual plan. So
Cool.
we're going to get a report back on that.
I thought we'd agreed to do it for next year, for this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a trial.
yeah, as a trial. It's not
So that's
the
good.
final decision. So it's all
Yeah.
part
Are we
of
in
the-
debate or are we asking questions?
No, I don't know why this has switched into questions. That's why. But have you got a contribution to make to the debate?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. Like, so, like we do normally consult on our action plans, and, I just think we do need to be mindful that there could be alternative views to some of the more contentious things in here, but I've heard that we will, as those contentious things come to the fore, there will be a chance for the community to express their view, and, I'm happy to accept that. And I just think, when you reflect on the huge marketing that goes into unhealthy food in our city and in our communities, that actually looking at what we do through the whole event sponsorship, use of public space for messaging and marketing, I think is really important. And certainly I think we've still got the work going on, I think, around the national policy statement around things like obesity and how we deal with that. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's other things that aren't mentioned in here that can actually make a difference as well, and particularly things like district plan and land use decisions. So anyway, I just commend staff for the work that they've done on this. I think this does give a good framework, and I welcome the opportunity to have more detailed discussions as these projects go through.
Dion and is it Tony?
Yeah. Sorry, can I start?
Aaron, was it? Yeah.
All right, I'll go. I just wanted to voice my full support for this. I think this is an absolutely fantastic thing, and I just wanted to sort of go back to when I was younger. From Pariaka, we had market gardens. We looked after each other. Right, growing up, when Mum was, when we were a little bit older, Mum was working at the market gardens and supplied the people around the suburbs with food and fresh food, and it just creates communities, and I think it's really good in that respect to actually start fostering, creating communities. And also there was one thing I was actually going to talk about, but I think Yanni kind of got me off the track a little bit. It was around, and I've lost it, sorry. The mapping. There we go. I think that's actually really, really cool. And I think one of the things that we should be thinking about further there is there's already the mapping done by the residential red zone stuff from in the Sarah days. So there's already an opportunity for people who do want to get involved in that stuff to go onto those maps. I'm not sure where they are, and actually look at all of the fruit trees that were left behind from people's backyards and things like that. So this is already embedded into Christchurch's philosophy, and I think it's really cool to sort of move this forward. I also support this from the point of view of mental health. I think in society we're starting to see sugar actually maybe more of a problem than smoking. And I think the evidence is only just starting to come through in some of the research. So when we start further going down the track around sugar and how food affects mental health, I think the steps that we're going to take today and moving forward, I think as a city we do need to lead, because we do have big mental health issues in this country and in this city especially, and I think it will start with good food and good communities, and I think moving that way we do have long-term resilience. So I think, from that perspective I'll fully support this and anything moving forward from it.
Tim?
Thank you. It's we keep preaching, I think, to the converted in many respects, and I think this is an absolutely fantastic way to go forward. And when I say preaching to the converted, it's everybody jumps in because they believe it and it's right, but there are so many areas where we miss, and they'll keep going to those fast foods, they'll keep going to the bad stuff. You go to school fairs, for instance, the staple at a school fair are chips and candy floss. And I just wanted to, it's a 360-degree approach from our organisation, which is wonderful. One of the groups that is leading it in one of these areas is our events team, where they are leading healthy food in events, because if you have an event, generally you want the turnover, etc. So hopefully through that's going to start opening the eyes of some of those school fairs, some of the private operators, and supported with our staff that are driving this. So they'll see that this body is a leader in this, and they will hopefully follow. So I just want to say thank you to the staff that are leading this. Cheers.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I was dubious of this to start with because I was scared it was all going to be about the stick, but it's more about the carrot, excuse the pun. This is our healthy food policy, not our unhealthy food policy, and so this is about showing the way in good food leadership within the community, and I have an issue being on the health board as well around obesity and some of the issues that face a huge portion of our population, excuse the pun again, around that issue. And it is because New Zealanders and most of the Western world are food illiterate. They don't understand what they're eating and they make so many bad choices. And if we were as good at our food as we are at our math, we would be a lot healthier as a nation. And it needs to go right back to the education system. This draft policy, as it was before it went to the committee and then it came through the committee, I'd got more phone calls on, well, this is the second most phone calls I've had in this term behind an intersection in Harewood Road, and it was around some of the things that were in here, the food fridge. People got excited about that and thought it sounded kind of really cool and weird at the same time, until you explained that when you grow food at your own property or in a community garden, you always have an excess of certain things at a certain time, Feijoas being the big one. And what happens is you can't eat all the food you have. And to just take it down, put it in a box and sit it at the local food pantry and then see it disappear when you drive past or bike past later that day is a really cool thing, because it's just not going to waste, and we waste a huge amount of food in this country. And to just share a little more around, and the concept of kids, where I grew up in Woolston, and we used to have in our own minds a map of the fruit we could steal, and normally it grew over footpaths. I'm just going to say that was in the public domain technically, and you would pick it and take it. And we're going to now encourage that and see more of it in parks and things. Encourage kids to come along and just gluttonize themselves on fresh fruit or vegetables in a park. How cool is that? That's a great thing and a great city to live in. So I applaud this and thank you to all those involved.
Andrew?
I'm really encouraged by this. It brings together a number of conversations that have been going on for some time, and certainly work that's been going on in some communities for some time as well. In Littleton, we've had a very successful community garden for many years. We've got the Plenty to Share table that sits on London Street in Littleton, where people do take along the kind of excess that Aaron was just referring to from their own gardens and also from the community garden. So I'm particularly encouraged by the content of clause 5.9. Actions include increasing the number of community gardens and edible planting on public land. This presents an opportunity for education around healthy food choices, and of course there is plenty of education about poor food choices in the sort of advertising that promotes food that are often providers of gratuitous sugar and gratuitous fat that lead to poor food choices. Also, community garden leads to education around gardening, planting, the seasons, the way of nature. In some ways, a back to the future approach. This is the way that things were done in communities in the past. I'd like to think that it's the way that things will be done at the local level in the future as well. So whether planting on public land ends up with a situation where we've got fennel along the footpaths, or potatoes at the park, or rockets at the roundabout, or beetroots in the berms, who knows? But it's certainly a good initiative, and I think it's one that will lead to some good educational and community health outcomes as well. So really pleased to see it.
Will in itself involve a degree of community engagement, because it's not going to happen without the community. I agree entirely with what Aaron said, is that it takes a proactive leadership role, but it requires engagement to make it happen at a community level. So on that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. Yes.